Welcome to Coachability Conversations with Jake Weiss, PhD, and Jesse Wright. Today, Jake and Jesse will discuss how elite performers go about seeking feedback. Please listen through the end to learn about the pre-work task for our next session.
So, Jake, we've talked about my fortunate background before. Again, I got a chance to spend the bulk of my career working with teams and organizations in elite level sport, 14 years in the NBA, and did short stints in the NFL and a couple different Division I universities, and have had the fortunate opportunity to be around a lot of high level performers. And they're a different beast, right? They're wired differently. They go about their days differently, whether you're talking their work ethic, their schedule, their attention to detail. One particular differentiator is sort of how they seek out feedback. How do they themselves get coached? So can you talk about elite performers, the highly coachable? How do they go about the process of seeking out feedback, and what do they consider when they're asking those questions?
Yeah, no, it's a key factor that, as you mentioned, differentiates the elite of the elite. And I want to kind of reference back to the coachability assessment and that authenticity factor first before getting into how they ask, because that's a critical element that a lot of high performers have the mentality of they are going to seek feedback with the most authentic motivation they can. Now, there are times where they want the information that lets them know they're on the right track or they want to feel good, but the highly coachable are really tuned into finding the information that is going to help them grow and improve in certain areas. So thinking back to the coachability assessment and authenticity, as we've talked about frequently, and as we talked about when we were in Orlando at UCF in April, with authenticity, there are three major motives that influence why we seek out feedback and coaching. One of them is the ego motive. That's where we seek coaching and feedback because we want to pad the ego, we want to feel good, we want to feel assured. So we might have just delivered a great sales call, we might have just delivered a great presentation on stage, and our first reaction is to find someone in the front of the audience or to call our coach and say, hey, how did that go? Knowing it went well, knowing we're going to hear good things. Again, these are motives that I'm going to talk about are all natural. They're all human. We all engage in them for different reasons. But that ego motive doesn't often give us the information that we need to grow and get better. And most elite performers, whether it's in sport, whether it's in organizations, they use that motive, but not as much as they use the most authentic motive, which we'll get to in a second. With the image motive, what individuals tend to do is they'll seek out feedback and coaching to convey a certain image or portray themselves in a certain light. So they might actively seek feedback from a wide variety of different sources because they're solidifying in the mind of those feedback providers that, hey, Jake's open to coaching and feedback. He's seeking it out. Now, whether I'm hearing anything they're saying is a completely different story. My intention when operating with the image motive is to portray a certain image that I'm open to growing and I'm open to improving. Now, the most authentic motivation, which is the one that most high performers and elite athletes tend to operate from, is the instrumental feedback motive, or what we often call the informational motive. And what the instrumental or informational motive is, we view feedback and coaching as an instrument. It's a tool that enables us to grow and get better. We're typically not just seeking out positive, but we really want the constructive feedback, the nuance, the nitpicky information that takes us from the A level to the A+ level. That's what individuals with that authentic motive are looking for. So that's one of the key considerations of high performers is, why am I seeking out the coaching and feedback? Am I going in to truly get the information that will help me grow and improve and continue differentiating myself? Or am I seeking it out to hear good things or to look good? Again, even the elite operate with all these motives at different times, but they strike a stronger balance where they're more often operating from that instrumental, informational, authentic motive, and the ego and image are not as present all the time. So that's one of the key considerations. Building from that, I want to talk a little bit about how they ask for feedback and coaching. How do the highly coachable, how do elite performers ask for feedback and coaching? Jesse, you mentioned that the elite do things differently. They're a different beast, and it holds true when it comes to seeking out coaching and feedback. Generally, you might hear people saying, hey, what can I do better? How can I improve? And if you're asking a coach or a colleague or a feedback provider, how can I improve and what can I do better? You're not really giving them that much to go on. You're opening up a wide, kind of ambiguous net where they can just give you anything that might not really relate to the goals that you have at hand. And it might not be that practical for you because you're not honing in on what you really want feedback on. So to help people elevate to that high performance level or that elite performance level, that highly coachable level, we developed what we call the ask approach. And that's what we train people on across organizations. And with the ask approach, there are 4 main pillars that everyone should consider. When you're proactively seeking feedback, research states that you should state and indicate your intention. Why are you seeking out the feedback and coaching? Now, it's a very simple piece that's often neglected. By telling the feedback provider or your coach why you want the feedback and coaching, you're likely to get more genuine information in return. If you say, hey, my goal is to achieve this level of performance, and for me to get here, I really need some feedback in this area, the feedback provider is already more likely to give you the information because they know why you want it and what your goals and intentions are. So the first pillar of the ask approach is state your intent. Why do you want the feedback and coaching? Make that explicit to the feedback provider or coach you're tapping into. You then want to be really specific about the topic that you want feedback on. And we talked about this earlier, Jesse. You don't just want to go in and say, what can I do better? Because the feedback provider might think of 10 different areas in which you can get better, and that might not be the area that you really want feedback on. Be really specific about a topic that you want feedback on. So if you're in a sales environment and you want to get better at uncovering the needs of patients, then ask for feedback directly on that. Don't just say, how can I improve my sales performance? How can I get better? Be really nuanced. So pillar 1, state your intention. Pillar 2, be specific about the topic you want feedback on. The third piece I'll note is to detail the context around what you've been doing, what's been working, what hasn't been working with respect to the area you're seeking feedback on. And this is important for a few reasons. Often in a corporate environment, our coaches and our leaders aren't with us all the time. They can't observe everything we're doing. Just because they can't observe everything we're doing doesn't mean we shouldn't be getting feedback and coaching. So the more we detail the context around a certain skill that we're trying to improve, hey, I'm looking to improve the way in which I uncover the needs of patients. This is what I've been doing. These are the types of questions I've been asking. This is the type of information I've been providing. Now, with that information, what feedback and thinking can you share with me that might help me get better in this area? So I want to paint a picture on what I've been doing, what's been working, what hasn't. Not only does it give the feedback provider more information to then tailor their feedback specifically to what you need information on, but they're less likely to kind of rehash or be redundant with approaches and things that you've already been trying that have either worked or not worked. So detail the context. It's really important, especially when your feedback provider is not with you all the time. The fourth pillar that I'll talk about with respect to the ask approach is about asking for or describing a benchmark that you're looking to achieve. So you want your feedback provider to have some insight into the benchmark that you're looking to elevate that skill that you've identified to. So you're specific about a topic. I want to uncover the needs of certain patients. I've described what's been going well, what hasn't been going well. Now I want to describe a benchmark. Do you want to elevate that skill to the level of the best performer in the company? Do you want to elevate that skill a little bit higher? Is it more of a learning goal? To what level do you look to elevate that skill to? And by sharing that benchmark with your feedback provider, you're giving them a lot of information where they can tailor their feedback, not only to the skill you're looking to improve, but they can give you the level of feedback you need to improve the skill you identified to that level that you're looking to elevate it to. So provide a description of the benchmark to your feedback provider of what level you're looking to take that skill to. Now, there are times where you might not know the benchmark, and you can ask your feedback provider. So you might say, I want to improve this skill. I want to get better at it. It's important for my goals, and this is why. I'm not sure of what level I should be looking to take the skill to. Can you give me a benchmark on what level I can look at elevating the skill to? So what insight do you have for me? So If you know your benchmark, you want to be as good as Jessica at that skill, share with your feedback provider. I want to be as good as Jessica, who's the best in our company at this. Now they're going to tailor their feedback with respect to that level. If you don't know your benchmark, ask your feedback provider. Based on where I am right now with this skill, what do you think is a realistic benchmark that I could look to elevate this area to? So the 4 pillars of the ask approach. 1, mention your why. Why are you seeking the feedback and coaching, and make that explicit to your feedback provider. Detail the context. What have you been doing? What have you, what's been working? What hasn't been working with respect to a certain skill? Be specific about the skill you're looking to get feedback on, and then incorporate a benchmark, whether you share the benchmark you're looking to elevate that skill to, so the feedback is related to that level, or ask for a benchmark from your feedback provider if you're not sure. So those are the 4 main pieces of the ask approach that we see a lot of elite performers using in order to elevate their skills. And this comes from the research, from the science, but it's also what you see elite performers across context really engaging in terms of how they're seeking out that feedback. And they're doing this all with that informational, instrumental, authentic intent when they're seeking it out. So important to be cognizant. Why are you seeking the feedback? And also incorporating that ask approach into how you're actually asking for the feedback and coaching. And with that, my last piece that I want to share is just some action items for everyone. So prior to the next session, what I'd like you to do is identify a skill that you want to improve, whether that's from proficiency to mastery, or whether that's something that you've been a little bit more fixed around, but would find value in taking to a higher level. Identify a certain skill, identify your feedback source or your coach. Who are you going to tap into for feedback in this area? And then using the ask approach, craft the way that you will actually seek out feedback from that source that you've identified on the skill that you've identified as well. So what's your why? How are you going to include the why? What's the skill? What's the context about what you've been doing? What's been working? What hasn't? And what's the benchmark that you're looking to achieve? And if you don't have the benchmark, how will you ask for it? Create your ask. It doesn't need to be too long. It could be maybe 3 sentences, but create that ask and then bring that to our next session and be prepared to talk about that, because we'll dig much deeper into the ask approach, as well as how we then receive and internalize feedback in the areas that we've sought it on. So looking forward to seeing you all soon, and we'll dig deeper into this then.